Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. I'm so glad you're here. Because today we are unpacking something that is, well, it's absolutely fascinating, but it's also almost completely invisible. Every single day we use artificial intelligence. We use it to write emails, generate images, or just ask random questions. And we kind of just marvel at the magic of these machines. But today we're going to peel back that sleek digital screen to reveal the opaque, highly secretive, and very human-powered production network that actually makes our everyday AI tools possible. Think about it for a second. When you type a prompt into an AI, who is really answering you? It's a pretty compelling question, right? We tend to think of artificial intelligence as this pure machine, just endless lines of code running on vast cold servers somewhere. But the reality? It actually relies on a massive, hidden human supply chain. Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today. We're going to systematically look at 1. Behind the AI screen, 2. How AI actually learns, 3. The roles of microworkers, 4. The hidden human cost, and finally, 5. The future of digital labor. All right, Section 1, Behind the AI screen, and what we call the illusion of automation. And this brilliantly illustrates the stark divide here. On one side, our side. The consumer interface is shiny, it's lightning fast, and it feels entirely automated. But researchers, like Professor Mark Graham, point out that this is largely an illusion by design. On the exact opposite side of that shiny app, there's a notoriously opaque production network that is heavily reliant on manual, exhausting human labor. AI companies deliberately keep this supply chain hidden. They really want to present themselves as purely technological entities that only rely on highly skilled software engineers. Moving right along to Section 2, How AI Actually Learns, from Turing to Transformers. So, to understand why this massive workforce even exists, we gotta look at the timeline. It started way back in 1950 with the Turing test, checking if a machine could exhibit human-like intelligence. By 1956, the Dartmouth Workshop officially founded AI as a field. Jump to the early 2000s, and deep learning neural networks were making massive strides. Then came this huge breakthrough in 2017, the transformer architecture, which drastically cut down training time. That directly led us to 2022, when ChatGPT was released and grabbed 100 million users in just 2 months. But here's the catch. These exponential advances in computational power created an insatiable appetite for annotated, curated data. The algorithms got smarter, sure, but only because they had a mountain of human-sorted data to consume. Which brings us to this highly technical-sounding, but absolutely crucial concept: reinforcement learning from human feedback, or RLHF. Look, to demystify the jargon for a second, standard trial and error learning by a computer is simply too slow and way too costly for real-world apps. The machines need a reward model. Think of it kind of like training a very fast, extremely literal toddler. Ordinary human beings have to step in to intuitively guide the AI, effectively holding its hand and telling it, hey, this is right, this is wrong, and this is appropriate. Which brings us to Section 3, the roles of microworkers, essentially the human machinery. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the sheer paradox of it all. If algorithms need ordinary people to teach them, who are these people? Enter microwork. In a massive stroke of irony, the industry actually calls this artificial intelligence. It's the use of human microworkers on global crowdsourcing platforms, places like Amazon Mechanical Turk or Clickworker, to perform tasks that simulate artificial intelligence. Humans are literally hired to act as the ultimate stopgap for machines, filling in exactly where the code falls short. So what are they actually doing? Well, research out of Padua University breaks this microwork down into 3 specific steps. Step 1 is AI training. Workers are generating foundational data sets. They're identifying inappropriate content, labeling anatomical points like eyes in an image, or transcribing audio. Step 2 is AI validation. Once the machine spits out an output, a human worker reviews and corrects it, like fixing an automated transcript to make sure it's actually accurate. And finally, Step 3, AI impersonation. Yep, sometimes it is literally cheaper to just have a human pretend to be the AI. It's almost like a reverse Turing test, a real person impersonating a robot. All right, moving to Section 4, the hidden human cost. Let's look at the exploitation and privacy risks. All of this manual labor carries a severe cost. We really have to ground this in academic research, like this comprehensive analysis from the University of Padua, which digs deep into the exploitative nature of microwork. Because these independent contracts are often temporary, sometimes literally lasting just seconds, these workers lack traditional protections. They don't have job security, and they certainly don't have union representation. To really humanize these data points, just listen to this powerful observation from Professor Mark Graham during his fieldwork in a Kenyan outsourcing center. He wrote, "Workers were in tears. Rows upon rows of data annotators sat hunched over their screens, their backs stiff and their eyes reddened. He noted that they were battling severe sleep deprivation just to meet the relentless industry demand for data. 14 hours. Just let that sink in for a second. That is the length of the grueling shifts these sleep-deprived data annotators are pulling. And for what? Often for minimal pay, sometimes mere pennies per task. And to make it worse, platforms frequently hold the authority to reject tasks without giving any feedback whatsoever, which means these workers sometimes face the grim reality of working for absolutely zero remuneration, nothing at all. The financial precariousness they face is just immense. And alongside that physical and financial toll, there are severe privacy risks. To maintain operational harmony, these platforms heavily monitor their workers. They collect highly sensitive data, worker IDs, audio recordings, biometric data, nationality details. So not only are these isolated, non-unionized workers highly vulnerable to cyber attacks or privacy breaches themselves, but remember, they are also the ones handling the highly sensitive data and prompts that you feed into the AI every single day. Which brings us to our final section, Section 5, the future of digital labor, growth and consumer power. So, where is this decentralized employment model headed? Make no mistake, this invisible workforce is only getting bigger. Forecasts predict the microwork sector is going to advance at a massive compound annual growth rate of 19% through 2032. Spurred by flexible work models after the pandemic and the corporate world's relentless desire for cost-effective AI solutions, this multi-billion-dollar industry is absolutely becoming a permanent fixture of our global economy. So, the crucial point is, what can actually be done to improve conditions in an industry that operates so deeply in the shadows? Enter initiatives like the Fair Work Project. Run by researchers, they actually score digital labor platforms out of a perfect 10 against minimum standards of decent work. This rating system is used to pierce right through those strict non-disclosure agreements, putting real pressure on AI supply chain companies to provide universal standard wages and decent working conditions, no matter where the workers are geographically located. And this brings us to collective consumer action. As individuals, it's easy to feel pretty powerless against massive, opaque supply chains. But the academic consensus really points to collective action. By forming alliances, whether that's through student groups, classrooms, or trade associations, end users can actually demand ethical certifications from AI suppliers. Think about it. If enough consumers and institutions put strict ethical conditions on their purchasing, companies will be forced to listen. That is how we bring real accountability to the hidden layers of AI. Which leaves us with this final provocative thought for today's explainer. As consumers of artificial intelligence, are we comfortable with the human supply chain operating behind our screens? And more importantly, what will we collectively demand of it tomorrow? It's a question that connects our daily digital habits straight back to the invisible workforce making them possible. I really hope this explainer gave you a clear, structured look into the reality of AI data labor. Thank you so much for joining me, and keep asking the big questions.